fill out the attendance form on the. Do you guys have access to the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do have snacks. Very limited ones.
It is. It is 5:04,
We have more.
and I am calling this meeting to order. Land acknowledgement. The AUCW acknowledges the stewards of Coast Salish lands, the lands on which we currently sit and the UW occupies. We acknowledge the original and current caretakers, Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations and peoples. Okay, we do have quorum because the roll call has been filled out by enough people. So we're going to move on to announcements. Does anyone have announcements from like the RSOs or any community events going on campus that you want to share?
I mean, we have our elections next week.
There you go. See, that's a big thing. Anyone on Zoom? No. Okay. So we'll move on then from the approval of the agenda. Do we have? I'm waiting for any motions.
Motion to. Did we approve it?
That's our motion.
To approve the agenda.
We have a motion to approve the agenda from Rhea. Are there any seconds? Second from Abigail. Are there any objections? Hearing none, we shall take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just or like a thumbs up on or hands up on Teams. All those against? And all those abstaining. With the voting included, the agenda is approved. We have no minutes to approve, so we're just going to move on to the chair reports. So, do you have anything to?
Not really. I just want to appreciate every one of you to just like campaign out there. We got a historic turnout, so I'm just really, really proud, and hopefully you join us next year for EAC. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I concur with that statement, and we'll just move on. I got nothing else to report either. It's all in like our discussion items. Brendan is not here, so we'll move on to our new business. I've written an administrative policy 23-2- no, not 3, which is a policy to establish a convention on the voting ballot, because this year, like in previous years, it's been just kind of up to the operations and the outreach co-chairs to design the ballot with the student activities office. And so I wrote like a set of rules and conventions on how the ballot will be like written by SAO so that it isn't, so it's always constant in years to come. So if you guys want to read over that, it's largely in the that clauses. So we can take a couple minutes on that. And if any of you have any questions, just ask them. Oh. Did you request access? Okay,
Do you guys have access to that? Nope. Do we need
No, you guys are fine.
If you want to see things, it's after. It's good. The attendance thing in the.
It's on roll call. It's the roll call heading on the top of the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
I requested access though.
Oh, did I just give you it? I did, okay. So I'll give a brief on the voting thing, on the voting ballot AP. Just for the most part, it just says everything that's already on the ballot, but like makes it part of what the EAC does. So it's just there for like future EAC to do. We're going to establish that the ballot measures go before the candidates. And we're establishing, if you guys have a perspective on this, abstaining and not voting as an option for students, like during like ballot measures or for candidates, because like you'll have the list of candidates, but you also have the option to still have your write-in, which also counts as like none of the above. Then we'll also have abstain and not voting as an option for students when they vote for candidates or for ballot measures. Rhea, did you have?
Yeah, I just have 2 comments. First of all, I think I would love to bold the line 14, there's no cost to declaring membership. And they answered up just so that people are aware, because they usually their attention gets to the bolded line. And then
Oh, there you go. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's smart.
and then line 18, I would love to add, because I do remember someone selected no, because they were like, oh, if I can't vote it like this ballot, if I refresh, then I can vote again. they had no idea that once you vote no, the system in itself would never accept another response. So I think I would love to add choosing no means you will not be able to vote in these federal elections, and you cannot cast another ballot if you have selected no. Because some people did. And it was incredibly annoying because the system can only accept one vote. And I think that should be also mentioned in the page that please do not refresh. And if you do refresh, this is how you go back to your ballot.
Where would we write that though?
So,
And like that is a good point. And we also might have we're trying to establish a new like voting
Yeah.
website, so I don't know. But it's a good precaution. Like it's always
Yeah.
good to be safe.
because I think we can add that, and if we have a new system, we can always delete it. And
Yeah, do you want to just write down like
Yeah,
the refreshing thing? It's like just somewhere you think it's like the top of I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, any thoughts on the not voting, abstaining option for students? No, you're fine. Go ahead, Abiel. Yeah, you can, but I think then that's a good
what?
I mean, just from something we noticed on the ground, it was unclear to a lot of people who we helped about whether or not they were able to abstain. So I think having an abstaining option makes it very clear that they can turn it in the right.
Yeah,
that is a good idea.
I would do that. Sorry.
No, because like that's a good point because like you rank the candidate, so like if you abstain, then that would just be your just only vote then. Because like at that point, like people who are technically abstaining are just like saying they're just not voting for that like
Yeah.
position in the first place. But I think making it clear like says like they're paying attention, so at least that's how we know how many students are like kind of paying attention to the candidates. So which might be helpful.
We could add that in this after this paragraph that I'm writing, that you do not have to rank every single candidate if you wish
I
not
think
to do so. I'm not sure.
It's already in there.
Is it?
Or abstain.
It is there. We could make it clear.
Oh, okay, it's like part of the candidates part. You may also choose to not vote for any of the candidates in ballot measure initiatives and move on to the next question. There you go. So because it says here in the candidates part, we can move that to no, that's just for AUCW eligibility. Or we can move this sentence to also the ballot measure portion. You may choose to vote. You may choose to vote for any. You may also choose not to vote for any of the ballot measures. Ballot referenda. Just say ballot measures. Any other thoughts on the abstain on voting?
I think it's good as long as it's like I don't think it would be a good idea to have 0 as an option and also abstain and also like I think maybe if you're doing that stuff, just get rid of the option of rank is in place. Like of not having it. Because right now when you click on the numbers, you can choose not to.
There's a 0 option?
I think so. I mean I feel like I put some people down as nothing.
Interesting. Okay. Ballot measure questions. Because that is a good point. Because like if you rank like abstain on vote not voting like 1, then you wouldn't need to fill out the rest of the ballot at that point. Or like that portion that candidate list.
If it's possible to be like
I
you
actually
vote on this question and then if you hit abstain, you just don't even see like the list of candidates pop up.
well they're all during I actually have the photos of it, kind of. Because right now it's just like not a blank ballot, but like all the candidates are there. And then you just rank them. Where are they? Oh, here. I don't think that's within the current software that we can do, but again, we're looking into like changing the system. I'm sorry guys on Teams that you can't see this, but so like they're all there. So like imagine like president and like all the other candidates. It's like we can't like say if they do click abstain after John, for instance, for president, then it's not like we can take away the other options. And I do think, well, then if I think having it still ranked like abstain like for the third position is like, I don't care about the rest of these people. And then at that point, they may not like rank the other people. I don't know. But the option of, I think just having the option of abstain might like make people think, okay, they hear me and not wanting to like vote in the first place. So that might encourage students or something. So.
I would be a fan of looking into maybe a different like website or software or something, because something I noticed and like some of my friends noticed is that the ranked choice like drop downs allowed them to put the same number for like all three candidates
Really?
or all four. Yeah, it's like they like ranked the first person. If they ranked the first person one was still an option for every single other candidate in that section. So I feel like that made the ranked choice voting a little more confusing, a little more complicated to like kind of understand because, yeah.
No, that's a good point. Thank you, Mara. We're definitely looking with
Yeah.
SAO to like make a new, because like the system is already, it's not sustainable to stay on Husky Link. So we're looking into like a new system and like website and software and stuff. So, and then we'll keep that in consideration because that doesn't make any sense. We are running out of time, so I kind of want to move on.
I did change the language.
What did you write? Oh, right there.
Okay.
If you have, we'd also don't need to like pass this today. Like we can also vote on it next week. Is that the SAO office?
Yes, I think.
So we have, again, like this year, we're having the ballot order of candidates be like in the reverse that it's in the bylaw. So like president would be last and then community campus partnerships would be first. I do think that would kind of turn around the idea of like down ballot offices and like maybe get a bit more focus on the positions that don't necessarily have focus on, because like when we only think of like president and stuff during the election. Yeah, Julie?
I was just say, why don't you just do it in the order that you have the candidates? That's the order that you have the candidates when you have them on the
The orders guide?
yeah, right?
Yeah, no, it's we're reinforcing that. So like technically, because like that's an initiative we're taking this year. Like previous years, the president would be first and like the ballot and the voters guide, but like we kind of reversed it. So
Yeah, on the website it's president first, but on the voters guide it's director of campus
I switched it.
Did you?
Unlike
When I did it, it was president. And then it was changed it. That's what I saw it then.
there you go.
Okay, you changed it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, does that?
Yeah.
Everyone like that? Okay. Anyone on? Sorry, if I'm not like paying attention to people on Teams, just speak out. 7. Okay. So voter demographic. So not a lot of this has changed. We added the studying abroad portion like for your living community during this year's ballot, because I think we had like 6 people studying abroad out of like, I think there's like 400 of them, but we just want to make sure that like, because I'm sure they would be like, oh, we're commuter students, even though it's like, no, you're not really commuting to campus. But I think including that like voting demographic would be important. We have a bit more clarification on Greek chapter houses because the living community is focused on like the place that a student is currently residing at, and I think there's kind of that impression that if you're part of a Greek chapter, then just even if you don't like have a house off campus, we need to make that distinct, and like that's why I think it was called Greek House like the year prior, but then like the Greek community kind of got mad about that, so we changed it to chapter. But if we just say Greek chapter house, that clarifies you're part of a Greek life chapter, but also we're trying to find people who are part of a Greek chapter house that is off campus. Yeah, Abigail?
Is there like a gray area for people who are in like unhoused Greek chapters or people who like COB in and then they're still in dorms? Like, would you prefer that those people choose that they're in a Greek organization over choosing that they're in the dorms? Or
I think it's the place you're residing at. So like if you're like in a Greek chapter that doesn't have a house and you're not even living in it, then like you're in McMahon or whatever. But if you are a Greek life student in a chapter that has a house off campus, then you live there, then that would be there. And so like we had just like students could like type the Greek chapter they're in, but I think next year we're going to implement like we're going to find out which chapters have a house off campus and just list them. And if you're part of a Greek chapter house, you can also answer this question. And like we'll get that information from the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life. And that's kind of the same question we had for the majors, but I think we're gonna. I've been in contact with the registrar, and like they said that departments might be a bit easier. So I think we're gonna transfer to departments rather than majors. And like if you know what department your major is, and that should be a bit easier for us to track. And then also we'll have the residence halls and like the residence apartments list whenever you for students, because again, like that was also when they just like typed whatever residence hall they were in. Mara?
For majors, I know a lot of people, including myself, are technically pre-sciences, as in we don't really have a major. Are you gonna include that as an option, like pre-sciences or pre-health or something? Or the people who are like intended for a major, so I can be like providing option for them.
I think that's a good point. I was trying to figure that out. I think that definitely needs more discussion because we're transferring from majors to departments. Because I think that's what the registrar thought was a better option. It is 5:20. We do have that's a good point though. I'm gonna move on to our discussion items, and we can always come back to this like next week. So if you have any more thoughts, and then because we don't need to pass it right now. So yeah, EPP amendments. So we've been into like me and Leah and Washbrook have been talking about EPP amendments because like they brought up a good point that a lot of the policies within the EPP are definitely not like based for ballot measures, and like on our parts, like we've been thinking about like broader reforms before the end of this year. So because we wanted to make sure that the next year's EAC is on a good footing and they don't need to worry about all this. But where is that at? There it is. Hopefully, do you guys all have access to the draft 2026 EPP? I'll share that with you guys.
Are you recording this video?
I am. Send any emails. There you go. Oh, maybe not. Fine. Uh-oh, where did Sky go? Okay. Ethan, Stella, do you guys have access to the draft EPP?
Yep, I do.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, good. I actually am recording. So, switch to this tab. Good, I love that. Okay. We're definitely in the early stages of this. I've been focused on writing the ballot measure thing, and then I shared this with Leah like a day or so ago. But we do need to. Okay, one thing I do want to point out is the calendar thing, and it says. Did I update all this? So like there used to be different times of like ballot. Oh, they weren't this like different times, but like a different like row in the table that says, oh, candidate certification deadline and like ballot measure certification deadline. I put them in the same thing. That makes it more clear. I just like slash both of these things because they're essentially obviously not the same thing, but like they should be considered like candidates and ballot advocates. Yeah. So it's more clear because obviously that's kind of annoying, and like I have to go through the rest of the
I
The
have
EPP.
a long list of questions that I came to you with originally.
Yeah.
Which is like a bunch of things that I think need clarifying. So if you want, I can just like shoot them off and like.
Yeah, that'd be good. Or you can share them too. So yeah.
I can make a refined version to share to you. The one that I have right now is filled with my comments. So I like.
I think that would be helpful. Then I can share it with the committee
Okay,
because
sure.
like we do only have like an hour of stuff.
Well, don't do that at me.
No, you're fine. No, these are valid questions. Like again, I appreciate it every time like you came up to questions because honestly, more people should do that.
I emailed it to you.
Wonderful. Okay.
But hold on, sorry. It's getting mad at me because you're the Washburn email.
Oh.
What's your UW email? Can I ask?
Or like my like personal lead-up or
You can make a copy in your, or like, access it on your.
Do you want to discuss the voting period right now, or just focus on the ballot measures
Move it.
with the EPP amendments?
oh no, we talked about the voting period last week. We can talk about it again, but like that's a good point. I guess while they're figuring that out, we can rediscuss the 5-day voting period because um there can be more consideration about that.
Can you like tell me what was discussed?
We just thought that allowing more time for students to vote made it good, and like having more promotion during that week would be helpful. So
I do think from the past discussion I had with board, they are not accepting of changing from 3 to 5, but it's better of an argument to make if it's 4 days.
Mm.
Since one of the concerns that they had was the fact that if we have it on a Friday, they have to wait till two extra days over the weekend for the result. They're gonna make that argument if we present that this time, and no matter how much I don't agree with it, it is an argument and they have the
Yeah.
final say. So what I was thinking is to be a little bit more compromising and do it from Monday to Thursday, Friday elections announcement ceremony, and we give them the Monday to file in the financial form. So there's less of a quick turnaround for the final financial form, so people actually submit it. Because that's what happened this year. It was just like right after people were getting over what happened at the election, they were not in the mood to file it and look through the EPP again. So it's just better if you give them kind of that time to do that. And that would fill in more with the election period.
I hear that and I understand it, but like we were both at that board meeting and like we proposed 5 days, and we have legislation in the Senate saying that we're going to extend it to 5 days. So I don't see that as a concern, and a compromise with the board seems unnecessary. And we can always move the announcement to Saturday if they want that.
No, but
And Bothell has their announcement ceremony on Monday. So their concerns are valid, but the increased length of time that students have to vote is of more paramount importance. Abigail?
Is it possible to do like 12 p.m. on Friday and then the announcements at like 5 or 6?
We can do that too.
I mean, I don't know like what kind of issue you guys have to go through with the results to make it presentable.
we did.
It's all online, but we had troubles with tabulating the results this year, but we should not have that problem this year or next year. But again, we have the option to move it to Saturday, the announcement on Saturday.
My concern is that I think it's as much as I do support the Friday.
Uh-huh.
I was advocating it for in the board meeting as well. I do think that we could do it from Monday to Thursday, see how much of a difference that one day makes. It is an obviously updating timeline. And if you just make that one little change and then fix it and then reevaluate it next year, that is a better way that we understand if students are actually interested with extra one day of voting. So it's in the middle, it's not like the whole week. Because we all saw that students were getting annoyed by day 3 of ASU Day. So I don't know how that translates into 5 days. I think it's better if we try up till Thursday, give them the time till Monday to file the financial form, have it the cap the week on Friday, the elections announcement ceremony, because I do think that even though the elections announcement ceremony was very well thought of, the presentation was great, we obviously did not have enough time.
That was unexpected
Yeah.
given the circumstances.
But if we get if the results get tabulated at 12, we're gonna get the results at like 1 or 2 and all that stuff, and then the other culture is like dealing with making sure the announcement ceremony goes well, the food is there, everything is there. I do think that it is a very quick turnaround, and I do not want to commit to 5 days just like instantly from 3 to 5 without actually seeing how 4 days do in the student population, because it's also about how students feel being like pressured into voting. They are pissed in 3 days.
Mhm.
Like you saw Reddit, they're pissed.
We can lower. Okay, this is Abigail.
Just gonna say, obviously, I like the idea of expanding the voting period also, but just from like a volunteer's perspective,
Mm.
I feel like after 3 days, I was doing like an hour and a half, 2 hours for 3 days, and that's like kind of in midterm season. So like it's a lot. That was a very busy week,
Okay.
and I don't mind doing it, but I think if you want to expand the voting period, it's also important to like really start like getting on people to volunteer and to do stuff like that, because like I don't think the amount of volunteers we have right now could do 5 days.
No, that's a good point. We've been discussing like with Brendan actually like a stipend for like volunteers during that period. Definitely like during the voting period. Yeah, exactly. It's like when you volunteer, so you get something, and like we do acknowledge that's not like great at the moment. And I've been thinking like I think not the voting, the campaign period's odd and long, and if we're concerned about the amount of time that candidates are out there, or the amount of attention that AC Dub's been getting in those, not even in those 3 days, but like overall, because like it can be a bit annoying, and it's a long campaign period, which like spring break's also in the middle of it for some reason. If we like move the
Very weird that spring break is in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Not fun for how we operate it, at least.
Yeah, and like honestly, we can just move the start of campaigning to the start of spring quarter, so like it's not like nearly a 2 month, like nearly like that long a
No,
time. Like
but I think
like
it's
2 weeks before spring break, people are campaigning. No, and like they're not gonna do that anyways. They're all gonna be planning over spring break anyways. And like if we just concentrate the amount of campaigning that's done, then they don't need to. Candidates don't need to worry about too much. Like, oh, what are we gonna do during this like
Even
first
if we
week?
started campaign pre-spring break, we know people have short memories.
Yeah.
Spring break completely wipes everybody's
That's
memory.
why we didn't even bother.
We
Yeah,
didn't.
I don't think anyone campaign.
Yeah, exactly. So like if we just change the campaign start date to like this like the beginning of spring quarter, then that would lower the amount of like promotion like candidates and ACW is doing on behalf of elections. And then like we'll have a big sprint in those last 5 days. And then sure they might be annoyed of us, but like it's not the total length of annoyance for the campaign season isn't gonna be as long.
I uh, okay. I do think that I absolutely agree that we should cut down the campaign period to start of spring quarter because no one campaigns. ESC does not do it either. So I don't personally agree with the argument that we should be cutting down campaign period will lead to people being more receptive to ACW and like less because no one's actually doing campaigning. Neither ESC did this year or last year. We simply did not have enough people to do that, or people did not have enough memory, and we did not see the benefit. I think that as a pilot program, this year we should do it 4 days and see how it turns out and see if people are receptive to it. Because 5 days, it is a big commitment from 3 to 5, literally next year. We need to be very, very streamlined. And I don't think as much as we have done this year, that we are there yet to like absolutely have a good voting turnout in those 5 days with the amount of resources it takes. I am still burnt out from the voting. And it's a long day. Like you guys know you did that. I think 5 days could be a lot. I think we should run it till 4 Capital Friday and then put the financial. I think that is something that people will be more receptive towards. If we have, I do think we should extend the voting period.
Okay, because Bothell has their elections 5 days. I'll talk to them to see like how their voting happened over those 5 days and see if there was a decrease on the fourth and fifth days.
We could
And see,
those.
yeah, because that would be helpful information. Emma, do you have?
The only thing that, like, I think ultimately having the full 5 days would be great. I just think having a longer voting period, especially a lot of people that we would talk to, especially on like day 3, they'd be like, oh, it was only Monday through Wednesday. And I think no matter how many people you annoy, like students get annoyed really easily.
Yeah.
Really, like you're gonna reach a lot of students those 2 days, especially if maybe you don't concentrate so much on the hub, because by day 3,
Yeah.
you're getting the same students.
And we know
We
really
move,
well,
because
like,
that's how you get more.
I mean, when we got our 6,000 signatures in over 17 days, myself and our chair were putting in full days from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every Friday. And, you know, we're out there getting rejected all the time. You kind of have to get used to it. You know?
Yeah.
But if you move locations, it makes a huge difference, which I know that you guys have like your different voting booths that you guys have.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, there's a location on Red Square, location on the quad. Just switch those around and make one of those your main location for the day instead of just the ones out of the hub. So you have like a rotating main location where you're like concentrate your volunteers.
See, the thing is, like, as much as we wanted to do the different polling locations, we simply did not have the manpower. So,
No, I
All the
understand that.
people are
But, like,
coming in,
you don't
and-
you don't even need to do the different polling locations. You just be like, okay, day 1 we have our main table outside of the hub. Day 2 we have our main table outside of Red Square. Day 3 we have our main table in the quad. You're reaching more people that way, and your chances of annoying the same group of people over and over again are significantly lower.
see, the thing is, also because it's not just ESC that campaigns. it's also candidates that do that. And this year, one of the reasons I focused on Hub with the limited amount of resources that we had, the volunteers, was because I knew that the candidates were tabling there, and us being there, they need to be 100 feet away from there. So they possibly cannot campaign in the quad if we are there. They cannot possibly campaign in that squad if we are there. They cannot possibly campaign in the IMA if we're there.
Fair, but that's like what
And they
I,
can't campaign in
what I
anyway.
suggested, I think is the only way that you can do a 4-day, 5-day voting period without pissing off the same number of people.
And we already, we already went into it planning to not be able to campaign in certain areas of the quad or Red Square because
Yeah,
like
because we
of the
knew that
map
there was
that
a
we had,
chance.
we didn't know like when
Yeah.
we were gonna be there, so.
Yeah.
So we trained a
You
volunteer
have to
to
give them
told them
notice
how
to
to do it.
plan for it.
Yeah.
We only tabled at like Red Square like once, like during the third day, because again we didn't
Yeah.
have the manpower. And I'm gonna consider time because I know you guys have to leave in a bit. But
That's something I'm willing to.
yeah, no. Did you want to brief on your ballot measure ideas?
Yeah, so I sent you, Francisco, I figured out how to do it. I sent you the stuff, and there's a bunch of different little things that really stuck out to me when I was reading through the rules. So for example, the fair campaign practices. I believe that the ballot measure advocate should have the opportunity to sign on to fair campaign practices, not just the candidates. Or like the 100 feet from the hub rule during the, campaigning period. That was something that Francisco was very amiable about, but like it's not written specifically in the EPP whether or not that only applies to elections related tabling or all kinds of tabling, because it says ballot measure advocates and ballot measure advocate affiliates. That I think you could easily extend to the entire RSO, regardless of whether or not it was like an election period. So maybe just adding a little line in there being like, no tabling 100 feet from the hub for election related purposes, Same thing with like expenditures too, because like something that I was really worried about was like, oh my God, is Washburg's entire cap going to be $50 for the entire campaigning period? Like, no way can we only spend $50 during that time. So making it clear that the money is for campaign related expenditures, it's no more than $50 for ballot measure advocates and their affiliates. Another thing is the campaigning in university buildings without permissions of the building supervisor. In that section, it also says that you're allowed to campaign in professors' classes with the permission of the professor. We would just love it if there was a way that we could campaign in like club rooms or like club meetings with the permission of the leadership of the club. So like if the leadership of the club tells us we're allowed to campaign during their club meeting, because like for Washburg, you let us campaign at our own club meeting, right? But let's say that someone who endorsed us wanted us to be able to do a little spiel to their members. I think that if we have permission, we should be able to go and talk to their members.
I do think Young Democrats did that.
Yeah, a lot of RSOs, because like a lot of RSOs did
But it's not
endorsements.
explicit, and
Yeah,
you could 100% call it a rule violation because they don't have permission from the building supervisor to be doing that. So I think that that's something that maybe under the professor section, you could add a little thing being like a club leadership. Let's say,
yeah, we
if you
can.
want.
That's definitely a good thing to consider. And like we do need to say like students, like candidates or ballot measure advocates need like written or email permission to campaign
Mhm.
in like at like a professor's lecture or in an RSO's thing.
Whenever, I don't know if any of you guys have had Washburn come to one of your classes to like talk about Washburn, but we get permission from the professors
Yeah.
and then we go and we speak. So we have that entire paper trail. And if we were to go to talk to a club, same thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Um,
That's smart.
On top of that, anymore. Polling locations, I know we just briefly touched on it, but we just wanted it to be a little bit more clear than just Red Square, the hub.
Yeah.
Because like for us, we had our Earth Day event that was happening during elections period that was on Red Square. That was also the day that you guys happened to have a table on Red Square. So there was this moment of being like, okay, is this covering all of Red Square or just like the steps of Suzzallo? Like, can we still do this event or no? So it's one of those things if maybe you guys could pinpoint a little bit more when you give out the polling locations.
Yeah,
because maybe
okay.
There, that gives us, because 100 feet is not that big of a distance. So it's like, it's reasonable that we can operate that range, not be anywhere near you guys, but yeah.
And we know like the scheduling for the volunteers too is something you guys figure out, but like if in the beginning of the election period, if you have a general idea of like, oh, on Tuesday, we know we're not gonna have enough people to have our polling location in Red Square, like if that kind of information could be shared, because then we would like.
Because that was
Yeah,
our
that's smart,
plan.
yes.
When I was sending our volunteers out to go beyond about, I was like, okay, if there's someone at an elections table, like make it clear, like be sure that you're 100 feet from there. But they had a really hard time initially distinguishing between election tables and just campaigns and like not campaigns, like candidates
Yeah,
campaigning. And so they were like, she's like, can you come check with me to make sure this isn't like an EAC table? And like, it wasn't. But that was something that if we knew where they were gonna be, then we can tell our volunteers, okay, do not go to the quad,
Mhm.
do not go to Red Square, you know, and then no one's violating any rules, no one's getting, pressured into voting. Another thing, we'd love it at that meeting where you're introducing the basic rules, you also walk people through the forms. So I know that for some of the candidates, there was confusion with the financial forms too. But if you could go through and be like, this is what the financial form is, like you do X, Y, Z during like your initial and like at the end, like, or this is where you put your pro statement and this is where you put your ballot measure question. That way it's just like so crystal clear exactly how you fill out all those forms and everybody like knows how to do it.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
That's a smart note. Yeah.
You can include in the EPP that EAC has to hold at least 4 info sessions and detail what needs to be the content of each info session, so it's codified
That
and
makes,
it's not.
Yeah, that could be in our
changed.
APP. Yeah.
because
'Cause
that's
our-
something that's like, it's one of those things where if I what half the complaints were financial form related complaints and you had to go up there like 20 times. Like, I feel like that's something that could be easily avoided.
Yeah, they just need to put
Lots of
0,
things
like
there.
honestly, and like that's a good point because the first one of our info forms are like at the end of January, and then like we do the rest of them during February before
Yeah.
filing
Like,
opens.
we had no idea. No one told us that those info forms were happening. And I will tell you right now, like the SA office knew for sure we were doing this because we were getting our 6,000 signatures during that. No one goes out there to get 6,000 signatures if they don't want to be on the ballot. So
Yeah.
like we were not aware of. Another thing, I know that we talked about it during the complaints, but just making it clear about the incentives that are going to be published. If we could get like, I think that if the candidates and the ballot measure advocates could get an email like a week before the voting period happens, being like, these are going to be the incentives. Great. That's all I want.
Okay.
You know, I just want to have like fair notice because I remember there, and maybe like rules within the EPP being like, you guys can provide incentives.
Yeah,
This is
I
how
think
we'll be
clarifying
working.
that's important.
And there was also that other complaint about the incentives in like the residence halls or like the information during your residence halls and then the incentive of dubs if like for the.
Yeah, so yeah.
That's another thing that I think is just like something that if you wrote a line or
Codified.
two in the EPP and codified it a little bit more, you just.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you relieve that. And just like, I don't know, I think if we had like very clear notice, we have no problem with incentives and like promoting voting, like we're all about it, but we just want to know what they are beforehand. And potentially when you're codifying the rewards, also codifying how you're going to train the volunteers. Like the volunteers
Yeah.
will attend this info session. They will learn X, Y, Z. That way, if there is a real complaint in the future, not saying that's what's happened, but let's say volunteers like have giving people $5 bills,
Yeah.
to get people to vote, then I can come in or whoever is treasurer, because it won't be me.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah,
come
yeah.
in and be like, this is a clear violation of the EPP, and you'll go, yes, it is, and then we'll move on with this.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I definitely want to codify our code of conduct process because we made a form because like that existed like years ago,
Mhm.
and like they had to fill that out like any like elections poll worker need to do that in order to like actually be out there like as an actual member of the AC. So, but that's not codified in like the EPP, for instance. So like doing that and clarifying what should be in there, especially when it comes to voters' incentives, that's important.
Yeah, because especially like a lot of the things that I'm noticing is like you two are both like good people who are willing to be flexible with us. But like, let's say in the future there are 2 good people running this who aren't going to be flexible. Like that could hurt
Yeah.
the ballot measure a
Or, like,
lot. You know?
Who aren't reading line for line, like maybe.
Oh my God! Like I
Yeah.
have no idea. Like
No, that's good. Yeah.
like I think I have a 30-page rules document where I just like took notes on the rules and like made sure we were following everything, and I did like 3 separate presentations at Washburger. So, But, like,
Cutting.
yeah.
No, go ahead.
but yeah, I think just making it clear, campaigning and money rules are specifically for election stuff. That ballot measure advocates can sign on to the fair campaign practices, walking through the forms and outlining the incentives. Those are what we think would help us. in the future.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay.
And you know.
Yeah,
We'll
I
have access to this and I'll share it with the committee. So I also remember.
do think that we can also include another quick link in the resources page of our website with like code of conduct signatures by whoever, whenever a volunteer signs it. We can put it there so you know.
We do need to make our membership like poll
So
workers.
it's so like visible, like what measures we have taken, that they're trained and it's public record.
Yeah.
So that when that complaint happens, we can quickly go to the website and look at those quick links as well, and that's available to
Yeah.
everyone.
And then you have like solid standards that you're holding every
Yeah.
volunteer to in the future, which is always good.
to get money for.
Listen,
Yeah,
I hear about
that's-
stipends for your guys' volunteers. Wish we could do that.
Yeah, we used to pay them because like we had like
We had
physical
money.
polling locations because like physical ballots and stuff. But that's when we had money. I don't know how we had more money in the
I
past.
can't
But
believe that. I think if I told our volunteers that we were paying them, they'd be like,
Oh my gosh, we get our signatures in like 4 days.
get out there, come on, guys.
Jesus. Okay.
But yeah, yeah, we have 15 minutes. Thank you guys for those notes. I sent
Yeah,
them to
perfect,
the
yeah.
committee. We'll definitely really consider them in our amendments this year. So, thank you guys.
Thank you for listening. to
Of
us.
course, yeah.
Thanks for having us. Thank you, snacks.
Yeah, of course. Are there more? Is there any left? I'm having dinner
Yeah,
later.
but-
Actually.
Okay. Just to comment related to the stipend thing, that is something I found confusing. I think for services. When I signed up to volunteer, it lists volunteer and poll workers two separate positions, which kind of implies that poll workers is volunteers. So I don't know if there's like where that language is, but I remember.
Yeah, no, it was during the yeah, our like application process. They were kind of like vague, I guess, and that's a good point. But yeah, you just poll working like just had more responsibility to it. Like obviously, like going out there, like attending a booth and stuff like that. But like just being a volunteer didn't mean like you necessarily did that, and we could clarify that more. But I did have bullet points on that. Mar,
And on that, also the intern position was listed on the same form, which I like understand for ease. But if they're being sent out or like accessible in the same area of a website or an email or something, maybe making the intern like application a separate form or something, because that requires like more like essays and like kind of like tidbits and stuff than like the volunteer form / poll worker form,
yeah,
which is like a lot more just like if you can give the time, we'll take you.
yeah, no, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we can definitely consider that for next year.
And in addition to that, maybe, because we definitely had a shortage of volunteers, I think maybe advertising that a little bit more than just having it on the website, because I know the reason I found out about it is because I wanted to get more involved with ASU Dub, and this was one of the things listed on the website. Whereas if you guys maybe like, I don't know, posted something on Instagram, or maybe had flyers out somewhere, or even a booth to say, hey, we're looking for volunteers, it's a great way to get involved. And like, especially first year students, I think would hop on that and you get a lot more volunteers for elections.
Yeah, that's good. We posted on our Instagram like early in October. Then we did like more emails and stuff like with Naomi. And then like considering like we do want to consider like making, because the Senate did a dog days event, and I do think that would be smart for the AC to do.
Yeah.
And that's something that the co-chairs sort of plan over the summer. And like that's something we should codify in the EPP as a
We
responsibility.
should also.
But
sorry.
but yeah, that's like promotion, like we're always gonna struggle with this. But like I think we have room to improve for next year. So
We should codify some channels that we definitely have to contact.
Yeah.
When we're looking for volunteers like RCSI. Different, especially like in College of Arts and Sciences, their departments, they have advising in there, put out flyers in there and tell the advisor that this is an opportunity. Like per se that in econ, all the opportunities that go to the advisor, they're sent out with an email, and like a lot of times I'm interested in that. So I think we should codify, we should look for departments, put that in the EPP, like that's our outreach plan. I think there should be another section in the EPP about the outreach methods for next year, so they're
Yeah.
codified and the co-chairs are required to do within the EPP, so that in the summer that we've given them hours, they actually plan to do that, because outreach is the next responsibility, and maintaining a voter turnout with a slight increase is the goal of next year, to not decrease the voter turnout.
yeah, that's what I wanted to make the public promotions campaign as like our like the consistency of that, and I wanted to codify that in a sense as well, like in our EPP or like just as a separate document. That's like
The Senate bill.
no, the public promotions campaign that had
Okay.
like all of our things
Okay.
and ideas, because that's an internal thing. I think because I want to promote. I know we're not going to get this next year, but I want to consistently ask for a programming co-chair so that they could focus on like the ACW fair and like planning those forums. Outreach does the public promotions campaign, and what the operations focuses on like the EPP and like making all these like internal things that are necessary. And chairing the meeting. We don't need two co-chairs, and that's why I want to make us like co-administrators. But yeah, Abigail Mara.
Did you guys like do any public comments on it about volunteers?
Yep.
We did that like at a meeting in October. Like I did a presentation about EAC.
No, we also did it. I definitely said that. We had like.
Yeah, we had a couple, like I did a full presentation in the beginning of Senate, and then like we've definitely talked about EAC a bunch during like the announcements period.
Even the
period.
board's report, I definitely asked Jacob to mention that multiple times.
I just meant more from like a finding volunteers perspective.
No, yeah,
We asked OGR too, because like we've been working with Brandon
Yeah.
Elliott and like pooling our like volunteer base, and that's why a couple of them have been like a bit a
People.
part of that. Yeah, Mara.
Another idea I have is like sending emails out through like the residential like communities and stuff. And like I get a lot of emails just from like whoever's the head McMahon. You get those like big emails sent out, and then also like hall councils
Mhm.
promoting to them maybe, because people who do hall councils seem like the type of people who would never volunteer for
Yeah,
this.
yeah. That's smart. I think like clarifying which groups or like UW entities we reach out to, that's gonna be important for next year. And that could be laid out in like the promotions campaign.
we need to
we
get
know-
RCS's governor, like director of government affairs a seat in UC.
Why? Because then the Greek Life Council is gonna ask for something. No, like not no, that's not necessary.
Because then it's actually like whatever we had this year with Autumn was special because she is involved in more Senate. We're friends with her. That's why RCSA actually did a lot this year.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that relationship is going to be continued. If Naomi, especially because she attends Senate online, I don't think we're going to have that connection. And I think giving her a seat or even Greek Council a seat, I don't think it's a bad idea in the committee in itself. They can not be a voting seat, but it's good to give them a seat so that it doesn't affect quorum, but they are involved in the process and they are on our mailing list so that they're aware of what's happening. Because we need to keep them in loop for next year.
Yeah,
So we could give them a seat because we're giving Senate. And
but okay, this is my argument to Autumn. They're solely focused on residents and stuff, and like if we do include Greek life, then that makes sense. But then more groups will be asking, which they deserve because we're including these groups. So, but like if they have Senate representation because they are a group of students, and like we're giving Senate a seat because they have representation for like all students. That's it's a representative body of all students on campus. But if we give seats to like specific groups of students, whether it's the resident students or like now Greek like students, then other groups are going to be asking, can we be a part of the committee? And like we would need to do that because that's just fairness. But like because we have working relationships with these groups because that's important. Like we're going to continue working with RCSA and the Greek Life Councils, but that's going to be too many cooks in the kitchen,
we can
even if they're not voting.
I do think that it is an idea worth exploring of what other groups we get involved because where we stand in ASUW and EAC in itself, right now, the more we have, the better it is so that we're more represented and that we hear more outreach ideas from them because EAC cannot sustain this without RCSA or Greek life. They have two very integral parts. RCSA did a lot this year, and I don't think that's going to continue if Autumn is not there.
I doubt it too, but it's not, and we should be concerned about our working relationships with these groups. But that's why we reach out to. That's why it was my job to do that, and like that's why we have outreach capacities. And I'm just concerned that it makes it because we don't need to be the Senate. We need to act like it. We need like the membership pool and like volunteer base to like we need that amount of people to actually make this all function. But we don't need to be like have a representative pool like the Senate in an instance. Like for instance.
I understand that. We can circle back to it if we see RCSA falling through the cracks.
But then see that again, if we give seats to those groups, like a bunch of other groups are gonna want that. Which is fairness, which I concur, but like that opens up a gate to like we're gonna miss out on groups and they're gonna be like, why didn't you include us in the committee? And like we need broad student representatives, like representative groups, not just these singular groups, which are helpful. Like I agree, like working with RCSA is important, like increasing the turnout amongst resident life and Greek life is important, but we need to be consistent with it. Abigail?
just kind of opt in. Then like it's on them if they didn't want to be a part.
That's
Like,
smart.
You could just have that as kind of like a way to gauge people's, like, disseminate information to the Greek life people, to the residents, like stuff, but also like it would kind of stop the issue of, voting seats and having a bunch of people in here during this.
We do have the voter engagement subcommittee, and that can definitely that could be that.
What if we create an advisory board within by in EPP and codify it that the outreach co-chair heads that? And like the outreach intern could be the vice chair, and all these groups can be a part of it. And they meet once a month, whatever mode it is, and during normal time and discuss the strategies moving forward. We can
Yeah,
include, I think, who did you call the dog? The democracy.
the democracy dog people,
Yeah,
like, cause civic engagement, Sally Center,
can-
first years.
and then
Yeah.
organization and all those that the student policy, we can actually make an advisory board on that so that we can actually get in head start forums and like planning and getting the word out there, especially when it comes to volunteer applications. We can actually set up an advisory board if we
Yeah.
don't want to give them seats in our committee in itself. But advisory board is like, and we can actually have it in a way that people who do not want to join in the committee and do that 3 hour work, they can have like 1 hour, 2 hour. It's a lower commitment.
Yeah, it's like a forum of students.
Yeah.
That'd be smart. I think that's a good idea. We can like a membership thing in the voter engagement. Like, oh, the groups that we reach out to in our public promotions campaign have a seat on the voter engagement subcommittee. So like, because we need to codify all the people we do need to reach out to, like RCSA, all the Greek life chapters and like the Greek life councils, the democracy dogs, like all these groups, we need to codify saying we do need to reach out to these people because we need to also plan the forums with them. And all the people we do say we're going to reach out to are members of this subcommittee.
Yeah.
Okay. We have 4 minutes left. I don't want to keep people here too long. What else do we just the new voting location? So I've been thinking because the having candidates look over people's phones has been a thing for at least 2 years now, and I want to figure out how to not have that happen because like in the EPP it says like, they're strongly discouraged to not like look over people's phones, but because like we can't be there all the time, and that was our main argument for last year because we can't police all the candidates, but also allowing it so that students can still vote online, but also in a sense of secrecy. That's the big problem. And so I wanted to establish like specific polling locations where the link to the voting ballot would be like physically like a QR code or something. Like I wanted to obviously the ACW offices, the libraries, and like HFS dining halls and their like front desks. I wanted to contact them about that to see if this was able to happen. So like those would be, and like our booths around campus during those voting periods. That's where like the physical QR code or link to the ballot would be for students to see, rather than it just being on our website. So students would have to go to those places, but then we would have like an absentee voting ballot, like a form or something that SAO would email to all those students who did file that saying, I can't, because they can't show up to a physical location during those 5 days. So they want a link sent to their email itself, and then they'll be able to vote without scanning their QR code or whatever's in those like physical locations. So it's still online. Students can still vote like on their phones and stuff, but it's not necessarily just like open out there. So like candidates would be like campaigning and like you just go on the AUCW website, you can vote here, and then hey, I'm gonna help you, so I'm gonna look over your shoulder. So no, that can't happen if like candidates aren't gonna be campaigning in libraries in the first place. They can't campaign within 100 feet of the booths, and they can't campaign in like dining hall and stuff. So that was my idea. Abigail?
One, I think part of the reason like that the leaning over the shoulder may be kind of an issue is that like a voter might be like, I don't understand how this form works, and then once you start helping that person, like it kind of just leads you into like helping them more with the process, and that kind of looks like a bit maybe they're like influencing their vote. I think another option, like maybe in addition to a QR code or separate, could just be to have like volunteers with an iPad that people can vote on, like a digital voting station or whatever, and then an iPad or laptop or anything like that, and just having actual voting booths that people could come. Because like I think the QR code is good, but I also think part of the issue is that like a lot of people are filling out a different form every time, like if we're making updates to the way that the form is, or they're freshmen, so they haven't done it before.
Yeah.
And like having it like theoretically like non-biased, like EAC member helping them is a little bit less like shady than some of these working companies.
Yeah, definitely. We were recommended to like have like laptops, and we do have them in like the conference room. I don't even know if they work, but that's an idea. Or like going to STLP to like have like laptops for that week, so like like students can log into their Husky, whatever the new voting system is going to be. But that's smart, because we need to do that more at the polling stations.
We need to.
But yeah,
I think
It
it's
is
a good idea because like you said before, like before we went digital, it was like you had a physical ballot that you could fill out. And I like the idea of having like a station where you need to go to like turn in your ballot almost and keeping it not necessarily like places where students have to go out of their way to go vote, like having it in like somewhere like Mary Gates or Odegaard where it's like, oh, I need like because then the students like, okay, well, I have to remember to go in. But if you have just these stations where it's like you can be walking through the quad and it's like there's a voting station like right there. Kind of like how we have polling booths for like, you know, just handing out flyers and
Yeah.
things, like polling stations for like, hey, this can be like where you can come pull over, vote, you know, really quick if you're ready, and then move on with your day. Like I think that'd be a good way to get numbers up and also like prevent people from having like, oh, I don't know how to do this, and like the candidate's like, well, let me help you.
yeah,
I think the physical like booth would also make our tables more exciting. They would like people would be more interested if they saw like I don't know, like one of those like privacy
yeah.
screen
That's also a
things,
good
like,
idea.
it
Yeah.
would look it would look more professional, not professional. It would look more I guess like higher
Yeah, exactly. I
stakes
get that. Yeah.
than just like
Essentially, yeah.
The issue with the tablet in itself is until we figure out a different system in HuskyLink, that would not work because that tablet would only have like one like universal login, and once you open a ballot in that system, you cannot open another ballot.
They just need to keep logging out. That's the thing. And once they're done voting, like I said, I'm done voting, we just log out of that Husky account and then just make it open for students to vote again. And like if we did have like even if it was like one of those like a high school science fair like board things around like the laptop, I think well like I think that would like do something. Ooh, look at a dinosaur's on it, like something. Yeah.
But like, I feel like for a lot of people here, they're so used to a mail-in ballot that like it's kind of novel to like go somewhere and stand there with a pen and fill it out. So I think people would be like, it would definitely be kind of show-stopping and be like, oh my gosh, what's this? What's this line of people?
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
It's just something that a lot of people do in Washington because they just fill it out.
and also are we not allowed to do something where we have I don't know, like a goodie bag or like here's a treat for voting, like a reward for like voting at the end, like where we have more than just like, yes, an optional reward, like, hey, come fill out the QR code, like, and you get whatever, like a Gator, whether it's like a Gatorade or, you know, a slice of pizza. Like, do we not have more than just like a sticker or a candy? Like we've been.
That would be bribery to vote
Oh,
and like against state laws. So like that's why we're kind of limited in like what we do because like that's why we're so like and that's why one of the complaints from Washburn was like there was the connotation that some of our volunteers were saying like free stuff, go vote. So, like if you do vote, you'll get free things, but our voter incentives were to promote the elections, not necessarily promoting people to actually vote. So like that's the sticky line there. And that's why we're trying to like codify like the words within the EPP and the code of conduct to make that like not sound like we're just saying if you vote you get a pizza or like a goodie bag is or like the 20% coupon or whatever. Like no, we got to separate those two things. But
So we cannot
I wish we could, but like
get
no.
food out because yes, we cannot find food. So that's also a very big issue that we always run into to just like even have food in a thing, and we have to either personally fund it or go through a long process of getting money.
Ethan, Stella, do you have any thoughts on like the voting location idea that I gave?
I don't really have anything additional right now.
Me
Um,
neither.
I think what I would suggest is that internally, me, you, and Tammy sit together and figure it out because while we do make those statements here, and I do think there are a lot of great ideas, we have to keep in mind and study the data from this year, last year, and like the trends and figure out what is an acceptable way that maintains a voter turnout because a lot of these ideas, I am not sure how much people will be receptive because it does take a little bit extra time out of their day to actually go vote.
yeah,
So we need to figure out like if we do implement this, which is a good implementation, how much are we willing to like lose in voter turnout, the cost benefit analysis of it. Because I would tell you right now that even though these ideas would make the election more fair, there would be a dip in the voter turnout. And how much is it acceptable to us, and how much are we willing to change in our voter turnout to make that dip acceptable to us? So we need to actually sit down with SAO as well to discuss what parameters we can actually do because we talk here, but there's so many legal issues that we have to go through when there is ballots involved. So even if we have a physical ballot, we have to be extremely highly trained. We have to go through a lot of legal processes, not just me and him or the co-chairs, all of you, to be physically able to handle that ballot because there's a lot of legal things when it comes to handling ballots.
we're not gonna have a physical ballot though.
But like all those, I think there would be way more.
I get that,
So I
and
think
like the balance. That's what I've always been thinking of. The balance is the quantity of students that vote, but also the quality of students that vote because it's easy to gauge the amount of students that turn out, but it's more difficult to gauge how educated those students are during the voting process and like what ACW is, like how many students actually read the voters guide and actually know all the candidates. Because at this point, it's still a popularity contest. It's like, how do we limit that? But the effort that students are going to take to just vote and like, oh, I'm going to go to the Odegaard library to scan the QR code, or I'm going to wait in this line that's in front of
whatever
on the quad or whatever. Like, oh, because like there's this laptops in a box for voting, and like, okay, like what's this? And I get a sticker, or whatever. Oh, Dubs is there too. What? But like, yeah, I think that balance is important, but the sanctity and security of our electoral process is also of high importance, and like balancing that's important. But there's more room for that discussion, and I still need to like develop the plan in the EPP so you guys can read that before it's passed. But given the time, and I just want to make a few more notes, unless anyone had anything last on
I
that.
was gonna say, I think like what you're saying from a spark an idea, really emphasizing like school pride in voting, like for ASU Dub. I think that's a good way to like, I don't know, create more of like a hubbub about voting and like get people excited to vote and not just like oh, this is lame, like they're trying to get me vote, they're annoying me with these polls, but like making it more like you said, like having doves or like, oh, there's a line of people, mob mentality, like more. So I think that would get people more engaged.
Something that struggles with a lot is like, as our population is so diverse and like people are coming from so many different places and everybody enters with different class standings, and like, it's just so hard to be like, you're all freshmen, you all have this identity, and you move through this, and then you experience all these events, and like that's kind of the process. That like it's really hard to get many people together about like the common idea of being a UW student, other than like sports or
High school pride is definitely difficult to build, especially when it's not in a sport. Like ACW has that. I like the perspective students have on ACW is like, oh, look at all these poli-sci students, and like, what are they doing? They spent like what on? They don't see our purpose is the fact of it, and so like they don't think that we have substance, and so like the elections, why do they matter? So building that's also an important part.
What if we collaborate with University of Oregon to have that?
Or Oregon?
Yeah. Ducks versus.
Oh, we're already doing it. We're already doing it with our sister campuses. So if we have a voter competition, we don't want to lose. What if we did with Wazoo as well?
Their voting rate is 44%.
But is that like their student government election?
I think that is a student.
Student
voting rates for you. I don't know if that's.
look Google
Because I
Google Associate Students of the University of But like, yeah, if we lose to Oregon, I feel like that would make them angry, students angry. But yes, exactly. That's why I wanted the competition with like Boston and Tacoma, and if we did with
No,
RSU
the
as well,
percentage was 9%.
they were 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could have Cougs, Oregon, and UW go, because I know that Cougs and the UW Food Pantry had that competition, and Cougs won by a lot. So we could do that between all three campuses to see which has that, because they also are struggling like us to get their numbers out.
Okay. These are great ideas that we can incorporate in our forms this year, but I want to eat lunch before I do other things today. Or dinner, I should say. God, time passes. So I'm gonna breeze through the rest of the stuff. Thank you guys for filling out the reports. If you guys been on that. Mara, Madison, you were not here. Abigail, you were not here last meeting, were you? So we have three reports. We have the final report, the elections report, and the Student Democracy Index report. They all don't need people on them. And I actually might assign you guys to something else.
Also,
Okay. Mara, Abigail, do you think you can compile a list of not all, but like a lot of the groups that we reached out to this election so that we can add it to like our promotion campaign to say, these are the groups we have to reach out to during a mix of both, because like I think that would be important for next year, because like we gotta plan our forums for next year, like just our outreach opportunities. Our CSA was a good example of that, and like establish how like our RSOs and like student groups like promote the elections, because they cannot be promoting their endorsements and the voting link at the same time. But that's an idea. So just both of you should have access to the public promotions campaign, and if not, I'll share that with you right now. And just I know there's a lot on it. Just add all those groups at the bottom of it. So I'll share with you guys now. Then Madison, why don't you do something while I'm gonna come up with something.
I have something.
There you go. See,
Do you have interest in finance? Okay, well, never mind.
it's called voluntelling.
Okay.
I need to work on
So
Budgets if it's budget related.
it is kinda, so I'm auditing our internal system this year and how much we spent. I think it's around $25,000 to $26,000, and our budget was 7K, so we were way above. So what we are trying to do is, after I have defined in my Excel, I have all the things, we're gonna like write a like financial audit of EAC this year, so that we can show it to the Finance and Budget Committee this year, and also VP and President, that this is our needs. This is a reoccurring expense, so that we can get it, so that everyone, like the new administration and this administration, knows that that is an EAC's reoccurring expense. That we are trying to always cut it down, but that is a number that would kind of always resemble. So like, how do we incorporate that into our budget, because we are in a deficit? So we need to create a report in that sense to advocate of how much money EAC would require to able to sustain its operation and the voter turnout and all these ideas. Because we also need to include, and by that time we present it, I also need to have the cost of a new system. So we need to include that, all those, and mention that this is a one-time expense. So we need to figure those things out before we present it before the end of this year.
Yeah.
To the Finance and Budget Committee.
Yeah, share the audit
I'll
document.
send you.
Send me like all the information.
Okay.
Okay, and then Nadine, Ethan, Stella, I'll send you guys stuff to do for your reports, because we still have some work to do.
Yeah, is it still, am I still doing like the?
Yeah, you're doing like the second section of the
Yeah.
okay, of the SDI. So yeah. Then yeah, Stella, Ethan, I'll send you guys things. So I'm now waiting for any motions.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. We have a motion to adjourn from Rhea. Are there any seconds? Second from Madison. This is not objectable, so I'm taking this to a vote. All those in favor say aye, or put your hands up on Teams. There you go. All those against say nay, nay. All those who abstain. With the voting concluded, I'm gonna say it's 10 to 1 to 0, and we are adjourned at 6:14 p.m. Right. Thank you guys. Bye, Ethan. Bye, Stella.
Thank you.
Just put it for both of you. Just put the list at the end. Like I can change it later.
Chat with me, just go and I'll just send you all the documents necessary and the template for that, so we can start.
Is there a document? I know we might have had